Welcome to this episode of Scale as Needed. I'm Armen Hammer.
I'm Kyle Bogart.
I'm Cliff.
I'm Daniel.
That's right, and we are here.
Sure are. That's a true
fantastic.
statement. That's
just
not
all of a
lie.
sudden factual.
I am the Abraham Lincoln of podcasts.
I'm feeling
in that I sound dead.
Yes. And you enjoy the theater.
Armen, in order to be the Abraham Lincoln, you really do need to get rid of that mustache, though. You should do that for a little bit, just for some gags.
He is the Abraham Lincoln because, like the real Abraham Lincoln, he is also secret gay.
Abraham Lincoln was secretly gay?
He's probably secret gay.
It's
Like, look at Mary Todd Lincoln. You know, if you had your pick and you were a big swinging dick Abraham Lincoln, you wouldn't go with Mary
I don't know
Todd
if
Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln
She was
was
a beard.
ever-
She was the real beard. I can't possibly be the first person to make that joke. That has to exist out there in the world.
I think you may be the first person to make that joke.
See?
Whoa.
There's
Mary
Lincoln. There's
Todd
Lincoln's beard.
Well, now, hold on a second, though. Historically speaking, she was probably like an 1840s 8. You know what I mean? Right
true.
now, she's like a St. Louis 6.
Yeah.
But she's like an LA 2. So it's
So
tough.
as
It's really rough.
It turns out looks just escalate continuously over time. So Helen of Troy, 1,000 ships sailed. What would she have looked like?
Like a 3. Like she looks like
so she didn't have any open sores, so that was pretty attractive.
Yes.
they probably had never seen a blonde woman before. Helen of Troy was like
was really what it was
blonde,
about.
and it was just a bunch of like Greeks and Turks who were all like brunettes.
Yes.
You can't deal with seeing a blonde
Which
woman
like
for the
best,
first time.
best case scenario, they saw her and they thought she was beautiful because it could have gone the other way. Like fuck witch.
She was just the first woman to ever have a vagina, which made her very valuable.
That's right. That's right. The behind that launched 1,000 ships. In case you're wondering, by the way,
Yes.
guys, this is a not safe for work podcast. So,
So really just crank those speakers.
yeah. So you know, guys,
Fitness.
I think CrossFit HQ does some things correctly. They do some things well.
Like listen to this podcast.
Like listen to
That's
this
a good
podcast
decision.
and take all of our ideas.
Yep.
But they also don't do certain things well.
What do they not do well, Armen?
You know, I
Another word
rewatched.
for not well is shitty at. So
Yeah.
you
I
just
mean
say
that's a little stronger than the feeling I'm going for. But
I'm anticipating some
Real
thought,
scathing-
some thought crimes about to come up.
real scathing critiques. No,
Some wrong think.
I watched the Fittest on Earth, Decade of Fitness, because it made its way to Netflix.
Yes,
and-
finally now we can watch
Yes.
it.
According to Chase, by the way, Netflix is free.
Yes.
So-
See, there you go.
100%
Chase-
true.
Chase
For like
says-
most people under the age of 27, Netflix is free.
Right.
Yeah. Because I still know people to this day who I know make like more than school teachers and who still use their parents' Netflix account. On
Just learned that there was a payment page yesterday.
Yes. See what I'm talking about?
I also like how you use the like your threshold of poverty is school teacher.
Yes, exactly.
that is
Yeah.
that is a scathing
Yeah.
insight into how
because-
our culture works.
Because they don't make very much, but you still think of a teacher as an adult. So
Right.
it's like if you're a barista, you probably make slightly less than a school teacher. But if you make slightly more than a school teacher, it's like you should have your own Netflix account because you're a grown up. That's my logic.
So until you make as much as a teacher, you're not actually an adult.
This is true. Yes, this is true. I don't care, like, because we all know that.
This is true.
We live in a bohemian city, Austin, so we all know what it's like to walk into that coffee shop and see that like 45-year-old barista with like a long gray ponytail.
Yeah.
Still an adolescent, as far as I'm concerned. So
Financially speaking.
financially speaking.
Yeah. I mean, I come from LA where you walk into a coffee shop
Yeah.
and literally anyone around you, whether it's the rattiest homeless looking man or like the prettiest girl, could be either homeless or a billionaire.
Or a
Like there's just it's one of those two things. And in Venice, sometimes it's both. It's just
Sometimes
really
at the same
artsy.
time.
They're having a crazy weekend.
Yeah.
So I watched
Shia
Fittest-
LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf,
Shia LaBeouf.
who
Perfect
is
The
who's
unofficial mascot of this podcast.
That's right. That's right. He's actually shooting my buddy's film right now,
Oh,
and he
right,
got
right,
picked
right.
up for being drunk in public.
Oh, good. During the
So,
shoot, during the
yes,
production? Good.
yes.
How's that going?
I think I would
Wait.
say it's going great.
Wait, hot goss. This is hot goss, you guys. You heard it here first on Scale Is Needed. Someone call TMZ.
I watch Decade of Fitness. Is that what it's called, Chase?
Yeah.
Oh, who
Decade
gives
of
a shit?
Fitness? Whatever.
Colon,
I saw
a
it way
decade
back
of
when. I
fitness.
actually bought it on iTunes for some reason.
The new one, the 2016 version.
Yeah.
Oh, why would you do that?
I don't know.
Did I ask you to do
yeah,
that?
I think you asked me to do that. I never wrote a review for it or anything. It wasn't.
Yeah.
That's fucked.
Yeah. All I can say is that by contrast to the not quite a documentary that the 2015 behind the scenes was, this was even less of a documentary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my gripe with it. I watched it over the course of a day and a half, just
Yeah.
kind of picking up 10, 15 minutes here
Couldn't
and there.
commit to more than 10 minutes at a time.
It's tough, you know, with a job and
Yeah.
dogs and
I'm having the same
a
problem
very
with
short attention span.
having the same problem with Master of None. Everyone keeps telling me it's good, but I can't watch more than 10 minutes of it at a time before turning it off. Continue.
At some point though, do you actually start thinking maybe this isn't good? Maybe
No,
it's
yeah, I
not
did.
for me.
I stopped the first season after about 3 episodes,
Yeah.
and I can't make it through the first episode of the second season. Like, I've made it like 2 10-minute chunks, and I'm like, how much? There are 10 minutes left in this thing. Fuck this, and I've turned it off. So.
Yeah. So that's how I felt about the entirety of that Fittest on Earth Decade of Fitness, which is a stupid title for a documentary.
Yeah.
And it's not even a documentary.
Yeah.
It's just a play-by-play with very, very little color commentary added in from some of the athletes.
Is it just like an action-y highlight reel for 90 minutes?
It's every event by event.
Oh, okay.
With descriptions of what is going on and what the event is and who wins what and what the drama was. And it's like,
Cool.
listen, no one cares.
Yeah.
This isn't important at all. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out like who is it for? If it's supposed to be for CrossFitters, it's not masturbatory enough.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be way more fucking like montagey and little like quips from Josh Bridges and Matt Frazier and stuff. Like there isn't enough of that for it to be like mainly for CrossFitters. Yeah. And there's no way it's useful for a non-CrossFitter.
Well, you know how non-CrossFitters hate CrossFitters?
Yeah.
This isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Fuck no, it's not going to help. That's a great point. In terms of marketing, this is like, man, we can't find a single redeemable person in this entire thing.
Yeah. The method, by the way, it was constructed in the same method as the 2015 one, the one where Ben Smith won and all that, except that just by virtue of the fact that the reality of that competition had more interesting shit going on. You know, there's the brutal Murph thing and like Annie just dying slowly in her soul and things like that, and then the climactic end. Just by virtue of things happening that were more interesting, it was a more interesting documentary. I say documentary in quotes because I also make documentaries in quotes that aren't really documentaries. But anywho, yes. But you know, the 2016 games. Hey guys, remember the 2016 games?
Not really.
No, you don't,
I
because
don't.
nothing interesting happened in the 2016 games.
The most exciting part, there's two parts to the thing that are very interesting. And by very interesting, I mean comparatively to the rest of like just the droll 90
In the way
it's almost 2 hours long, by the way.
Wow.
No, it is 2 hours
It's
long.
like an hour 57.
Well, it's hard to lose things after a certain point.
It's real, and they have shoved in some really unnecessary things in there. Like there's a whole throwback. They like kind of do this weird flashback thing before Double DT to Sarah Sigmundsdottir training in Stockton, and her coach like yelling at her in some random fucking language. I don't know, probably Icelandic,
probably,
and her just like nearly dying. But they don't even really make it. She finishes like this barbell complex. And she's kind of crying, but she just like gets up and walks away 4 seconds later. So it doesn't even have any real lasting.
Yeah, it's not
doesn't
contextualized
mean
in
anything,
any way.
right? They just kind of jump back to it. Anyway, the two interesting parts are one, Ben Smith burping.
Good.
And the context there is he and Tia Claire Toomey got smashed by a wave coming in on the coast during the ocean swim. Which, by the way, smashed by a wave there. It was like a 2-foot wave. Yeah. Like it's not even an actual wave that was smashing people. It was just like, we're in the ocean.
Plus a pretty good ambient noise rock album.
Right. Yep.
Smashed by a wave.
Is that really an ambient noise rock
No,
album?
but it sounds
No,
like
but
It sounds like one. It does.
It's the Lost Rush album.
That's good. And so he
That'd have been a better name. Permanent waves, ambient waves. Ambient waves is a better name.
Yeah, I know.
he gets crushed by a wave and he like burps, and he actually has a really funny, you know, sort of like moment where he looks at the camera. He's like, "What just happened? Like I just got crushed. Like what happened to me?" And then the other interesting thing was like apparently Matt Frazier can sprint. And that's it. Like those are the two interesting points of the entire.
Well, by apparently Matt Frazier can sprint. What are we talking about?
They made
here?
a huge deal out of the fact that they expected Matt Frazier to place poorly in like the sprint event, and he didn't.
Okay, good.
It's like a huge deal.
But here's the thing. Here's how, if I were them, here's how I would approach that strategy. The Savans behind the scenes at the CrossFit Games is way more interesting to CrossFitters,
Agreed,
far and away, than this. Whereas this, if they're going to go through the rigmarole of putting it on iTunes as a thing to buy, and it's a real movie, that means that this needs to be geared towards the outsider audience, which this is clearly not.
No.
That is certainly something that we have to take into consideration here at Flow all the time as we ask the question, who is this for? You know, and if it's for someone who's inside the sport, you make one type of thing, and if it's to communicate the idea of the sport to someone outside of the sport or someone without that specialized knowledge base, so we approach it completely differently. But I can't really comment on this because I haven't seen it, but it sounds to me like it really serves no one here.
Right, and there's like you have to ask those two questions. Who is it for? What's the point?
Yeah.
Right. And if the answer is it's for people who are diehard fans of the sport and that we want them to like gush over how awesome it is, that's one completely different project. This kind of lives in that weird gray area, and because of it, it really suffers. Like you don't have to be a slave to. And I think you said this in your review of the 2015 version of the same movie.
I don't remember 2015.
You don't have to
the
be a
year,
slave.
not the documentary. The whole year is gone.
We're drinking a lot.
That's true. That's a good point. You guys are much more clear of mind in 2016.
That's right.
The mescaline is working.
Not in 2016, in 2017.
This year is
Armen forgot
2017.
what year it was.
I should stop drinking
Now
too.
I can see colors and hear sounds.
So I think of something like King of Quarters.
What?
Right? Who's seen King of Kong?
King of Kong.
King of Kong.
King of
That's
Kong.
a different name.
Quarters.
Different name.
King of Quarters.
King of Kong. Fistful of Quarters. I forgot about the subtitle.
Yeah, the subtitle. Yeah.
King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters.
Terrible subtitle. For
Really?
that piece.
Well,
really
whatever.
could have stopped at King of Kong.
Yeah. Either way, it's really funny.
yeah.
But you look at that piece, and if you guys haven't watched that documentary, by the way, I don't know where you can find it, but it's probably on
Many
Netflix.
places.
You can find it
Probably a lot of
It's-
places.
Hey, if it's a documentary you've ever heard of, it's easy to find.
There you go.
They all end up on Netflix.
So you should watch King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters.
Yeah.
It was like maybe 10 years ago.
yeah,
10
years,
something like that.
Yeah.
And it's about this guy trying to break the record, the Kong
Donkey
Kong, the video game
score
Donkey
record,
Kong,
the arcade.
competing, and there's a good guy and a bad guy,
And it's fantastic.
They compete
And-
in playing Donkey Kong, the video game, and it's funny and works.
Right, and until I was a big video game guy, but I wasn't really I wasn't really a competitive video game guy. I didn't know about this sort of thing until I watched that movie. I learned of the existence of that entire organization and the referee and the politics and the competition.
Which is a great way to do. I mean, many documentaries, part of the reason they succeed is they bring you into a world, and that could be about sport. It could be about some
Look at
cultural.
all the Netflix cooking shit.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, there you go.
Bigger, Stronger, Faster is, at least in this space, that's a better example. It's like most folks who don't know anything about steroids, that's an awesome documentary to go all around the world about steroids. And that's entertaining and fun and all that
Or I
good
would even
stuff.
argue something like, because Bigger, Stronger, Faster is more of an issue doc, but something like even Strongman Eddie Hall.
Oh, yeah,
part of
that's
that,
fucking awesome.
like,
That's a good one.
It's a good documentary, and part of the mission of that documentary, in order for it to function narratively, is it has to bring the uninitiated into the world of strongman and make them understand what that world is, and it does a great job. And think of the montage where it cuts to like, here are the big guys in the sport, and goes blah, and introduces Bjorn, like Thor, and then blah, and introduces Brian Shaw and all of those guys. Like, that is to take the uninitiated and utilizing a cinematic device to, like, okay, these are the big dogs in this sport. These
And
are
it
the
literally
people who-
steps you through of what is strongman, what are the kind of events that happen at a strongman competition, what is a deadlift. They explain what a deadlift is from scratch, which is necessary in order to understand that documentary, and would be necessary in order for an outsider to understand something on a CrossFit competition.
But they do things like on the other hand, right? That's where you do it well, Eddie Strongman. When you do it really poorly, you get Fittest on Earth, and it's like you have to have title cards with the workouts on it, and just imagine the separator workout, which was, by the way, I had completely fucking forgotten what it was. I just remembered it being like a disaster of judging because of the ring handstand push-ups. But it's like ring handstand push-ups, back squats, burpees, ring handstand push-ups, front squats, burpees, ring handstand push-ups, overhead squats, burpees, and it's just it's like 30 lines of text split between men and women, just like slammed onto the screen for like 0.8 of a second.
Perfect.
And you're just I'm like trying to look at his. I didn't fucking understand what it's trying to say, much less them talking.
And
about,
I was there.
I was fucking there. I watched it happen. I remember that workout, and I still did not even understand what that card was trying to say.
The funny thing is, like, I think that there is an awareness that you have to have, obviously, with any kind of documentary filmmaking or whatever kind of filmmaking about like what you're doing, what makes a movie, but it's not a unique phenomenon to CrossFit, especially in the documentary space, to see all kinds of things, especially coming from people who are kind of outside of any kind of film industry or outside of that world, to produce movies that aren't really movies, especially if you watch like documentaries at the festival level, which Cliff and I have a decade or so of experience doing. So you really don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you go in and it's like, oh, this is a movie. Someone put it together. It's a good documentary. And then sometimes you just see 80 minutes of like footage put together that by someone who, and it might even be quote unquote edited, but it's just like there's no thesis, there's no characters, there's no this. They're just assumed, like someone without a real concept of what making a documentary is went and made something or put together money and put together footage, and now it exists. A recent example, this is not actually a terribly egregious example in that it was kind of fun to watch, but famed actor Kevin Pollak recently directed I watched this on an airplane, actually. He did a film called like Misery Loves Comedy or something like that, I think was the name of it. But it was a, quote, documentary, but it was supposed to be about comedy. And I had heard him talk on other podcasts and stuff about how I have this new documentary out called Misery Loves Comedy. And it's about comedy and what it's like to be a comic and all this. I'm like, okay, cool. So when I saw it on a plane, I hit play. Watched it. First of all, I can say this: the interviews are very well shot. They're very pretty looking, and it actually is kind of funny to watch a bunch of comics that you've seen before talk. But the problem is literally just a string out, basically, of just 90 minutes worth of interview clips of just talking heads, just literally saying 10 to 15 second things about comedy that are kind of loosely organized into like starting out in comedy, doing stuff in comedy, material in like a couple chunks, and it's just 90 minutes of talking heads just kind of loosely categorized. Like as if we were making something and we went and we shot a bunch of interviews, the first thing we would do is we put together what we call a string out, which is just literally to chop up all the interviews into something mildly coherent and throw them all on a timeline, and we look at it and then we start layering stuff and figuring it out. So this is like if someone did the string out, which is like what you accomplish in week 1 of the editing process, and then said, well, we're done. That's the movie. And that's what the movie was. It was just 90 minutes of heads talking in like 15-second clips about stand-up comedy. So anyway, check it out, everybody.
Which is why I said, if to Armen earlier about King of Kong, if it's a documentary you've heard of, well, except this not being the case, it's probably easy to find, because we see lots of documentaries and movies in general at film festivals every year. At South by Southwest, a fantastic fest, most of which will never see the light of day anywhere outside of a film festival. And
probably shouldn't.
And they should not.
Probably shouldn't. And that gives you a perspective on how bad things can get. If they don't have a giant corporate sponsor who is pushing it out to a built-in fan base.
Right. That's where the existence of something like 10 years of, what is it called? A decade of
fitness, the fittest on Earth.
The fittest 10 years.
10 fittest años.
Yes. Tears for Fears is what it's called.
Tears for Fears. That's correct.
Del Mundo. Del Mundo.
Yes. Bien, you too. But the existence of it is interesting just because, like, I get it. I mean, we work for a sports media company. It's like, well, we have all this footage of all these people, and we decided to interview them.
There's another piece of it, right?
Look at how hard they worked. We should celebrate them by just putting all that footage together and calling it a movie. And that's, so it comes from a good place, but it's just like, or you could spend those same resources making an actual movie that could actually serve your everyone's phone's going off today.
Jeez.
You could use similar amount of resources and all of that footage and make something that actually I don't know would tell someone who doesn't know about CrossFit about CrossFit.
Yeah, to the extent that I don't have ill will towards them, but to the extent that just personally in my own psyche, it hurts me watching Fittest on Earth, both iterations of it. The reason it hurts me so much is I spend my career here at Flo trying to make good arty whatever documentaries
with
very little footage. It's out of just nothing, bare research. When I see the number of interviews they get, the kind of access and footage they get, it's like, holy shit.
They could have done so much more.
They have, you can tell.
If you just toss me the raw footage, pay me enough money so it's worth my time, I could edit a fucking documentary out of that and kick the shit out of anything CrossFit's ever done. Just saying.
Unlike most things
CrossFit toss me money. I can do it.
Unlike most things we complain about, like quite literally, if given the challenge, well, could you do a better job?
Yes! That's right.
Yes, we definitely could.
There's a vibe to it. Yeah. And again, this is another thing which I've watched a lot of CrossFit media. And over the past year, since the 2016 games, I've watched a lot of what they've put out for free. And I'd seen like 60% of this fucking movie already because they reuse the same things. Like
we call that burning footage, which happens all the time with the pieces that we do, where it's just like we'll do a big event and then everyone will be like, let's hack up all this. Like if we have a film planned, let's hack up all this footage and put out in clips and things on the on websites. And we say no because we just want to sit on it until we can actually put something together, because we know if we're going to make an investment into a larger piece, that footage, if we burn it, and by burn it we mean it's already been out there, then it will feel used,
stale,
or as I often say, it will be chewed bubble gum by the time people evenally get to see it.
100% how it felt.
So it felt like chewed bubble gum. Is
fucked out is the other term.
On top of that, fucked out.
Just solidly fucked.
On top of that, they went up to Kelowna, and shot some stuff with Pikowski.
Cool.
Which is like a shot-for-shot remake of our fucking documentary with them.
Oh, good.
I mean, like, down to, like, him doing the Star Wars VR thing.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I mean, all of it. It's awesome. So fucking ridiculous. I was like, who did what happened?
You were like, did we sell them the footage?
Oh, by the way, guys, just to give you a little look behind the scenes in terms of what we can do with what very little footage, our Fikowski documentary, which is 2 20-minute episodes telling the story of his whole fucking life
from 2 days of
from 2 days of shooting. We shot with him for 2 days and got 2 20-minute episodes and a 2.5-minute trailer.
Yeah, that's right.
Edited in a month. So that's what we can do here with what resources we have.
That's a thin 40 minutes. It could have been a real tight 17.
Could have been a tight 17.
Could have been tight 17.
Very tight 17.
It's not my idea to make it 2 20-minute episodes. That's what we were mandated to do at the time. I would have preferred to make it a tight 17, but that's what we I had to do.
At the time. Thankfully, those policies are changing.
So here's my suggestion to CrossFit, and I obviously none of us have any sort of real insight into their resources, their plans, their end game, right? But
except for Handsome Chase, of course, who has a direct line.
That's right. He can just give Heber a call.
It's very true.
But I think
just found out who he was.
We can all agree that they have significantly more resources than we do. And a lot more access than anyone else does. And
resources and money.
They should be able to do better things. And so here's my suggestion. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here. Make a film, an actual film, a film for people who aren't necessarily CrossFitters but can still be appreciated by CrossFitters by taking either someone who's in their rookie year or their sophomore year. You can pick one man and one woman, and you follow them through the entire experience. And you use them as like the audience surrogate to this weird, wild world of the CrossFit Games. When you can introduce who's Katrin, who's Matt, who's Josh, who's Rich, all this crazy shit, and you can kind of build out the mythology of these characters and still have a fucking storyline without being a slave to like, here's a recap of event 8, and then another picture of Pat Sherwood saying, "Who's Tia Claire Toomey? No one saw Tia Claire Toomey coming."
That's post credits, by the way. But no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Normally, I would say that would be somewhat of a gamble, because if you're going to pick one horse and stick with them the whole time, you don't know how well they're going to do. They might turn out well with limited resources.
done
Your own
this.
Who cares? But
Good point.
Here's what they did, though. They have about 10 cameras and did sit-down interviews with about 24 athletes prior to, during, and after the games. They have so much footage. After you get all the footage in, you pick who are going to be your 2 or 3 characters and focus only on them the whole time. Why? Because you have unlimited quantities of footage of lots of people. Those are resources far beyond what any normal documentary filmmaker has to work with.
100%. In fact, that is, I watched. Okay, so to go back to yet another piece of CrossFit media that is actually way fucking better than this. Is the 2014 games video. Chase, did you watch the 2014 games video? Did you finish that?
Just finished it up earlier.
What did you think of that guy?
Yeah, I would have easily paid $12 to watch that.
The 2014 games video.
I know I watched it, but remind me.
It's the one that starts during regionals, and it's following Sam Briggs during regionals. It's following Lindsay Valenzuela. It's following.
Was this in multiple parts or all one part?
It's one thing that goes all the way through the game.
Was this the Savon thing, or
it was? I think it was Savon's last feature with them.
Right.
He did, and it was
So it was
like
a feature? It was
Camille.
full
Yeah, it
length?
was
Okay.
full. It was like just over an hour long. It was Camille, Sam, Rich, and
Matt's in there quite a bit.
Matt Frazier's in there. It's his first time at the games. He's smiling a ton. Who the fuck would have thunk it? It's
He hadn't been beaten twice.
It's Rich's last year.
Yeah.
It's the year Sam failed to qualify out of regionals
because of the handstand walk. Yeah.
And that actually is a real interesting moment, because Sam goes through that entire weekend. She fucks up that first day, and she ends up in 8th place and has a hard time making her way back.
Which, by the way, let's stop for just 1 second for a CrossFit history lesson. We kind of talked about, we mentioned when we were talking about Tahoe Throwdown last time, Cliff was saying, like, well, you know, shit got real when they began offering serious money for the CrossFit Games champion. I disagree. I think the exact moment that shit got real in terms of the CrossFit Games was that one handstand walk with Sam Briggs and that year. Because up to that point, if you recall, every year there was always a kind of fluctuating amount of spots open to previous games champions / qualifiers, which then allowed additional people to come in. I think one year, Central East, as a result of certain rules, qualified 72 athletes, 72 male athletes out of just Central East. I forget which year that was, but it was always assumed that like the big dogs were going to make it there either by invitation or whatever. And that was the year that was Sam Briggs had just won.
She won in 2013. She was champion.
She was the current CrossFit Games champion, and they'd announced
reigning and defending.
And so now at this point, she goes into regionals. She fucks up again one of those workouts that probably shouldn't have been scored the way it was, to be honest. But when she didn't hit that qualifying spot. And she wasn't invited, which was a shock, because it was really the first time at any of the regional qualifications that one of like the top 2 or 3 athletes, especially the current reigning and defending champion, wasn't even going to get to go to the games. It's like that was the moment when like shit got very real, and like and you could even feel that sea change in the interviews and everything that would follow, because pretty much after that point, I think is when you began hearing a lot of athletes saying, like, really just qualifying for the games is a victory in itself.
Right.
Like, people got nervous after that.
That was also the last year that they had all the split regionals. 2015, they started the super regionals. So that year, actually, 2014, 2 of the podium, the women's podium, did not qualify for the CrossFit Games. It was Lindsay Valenzuela and Sam Briggs.
That's right.
Valenzuela got boned on the legless rope climb standards.
Yeah, and that was also like I think the instance where like that was like the year where you just had lots of sobbing. Like, people are kind of emotionally prepared to not qualify. They were not that year.
Speaking of sobbing athletes, that documentary was actually very lucky for CrossFit that they were shooting with Sam Briggs in Europe at that time. Because there's a certain athlete on the women's side in Europe
Woo,
who failed to
right,
qualify in
that's
2014.
Oh, right, was that
and
Katrin?
and messed up during the legless rope climbs, and which they have ample footage of her fucking up, and all the CrossFitters with like Annie and
hey guys,
and fucking
here's
Sam
how
talking
you,
to her.
Here's how you do a documentary, a real documentary.
You
Here's
build a
with
redemptive
all
arc.
with all your footage that you have here. You would use footage,
crossovers.
You would use footage from amazingly. Think of this: used footage for a documentary from multiple years of the world, where you have Katrin kind of she was kind of soft at that time, failing to get that rope climb, tearing up, crying, destroys her, and coming back. You have all the footage in the world of the next year. Surprisingly, no one called her winning that next year. She shocked to everybody, really. That could be an actually interesting documentary.
No, it won't.
No.
Not interesting at all.
No.
So
lost
yeah,
me.
so the 2014 games documentary is much better, right?
Yeah.
They followed Camille through regionals, Camille, and
Camille.
that's the year she won. Again, they just like happened
Super
to pick the
lucky,
right
yeah.
horse.
Yeah.
And there's a moment there where she's like struggling. I don't know if you guys remember this. She's like struggling to push the sled, and like Lipson is talking to her, talking her through it, and he's like,
Oh, like back at home there, yeah.
they're in Denver.
Yeah.
They're visiting Matt and Sri Chan, and she's struggling to push the sled, and she keeps failing. She's like, okay, I think I'm done. And Dave's like, do one more. She's like, I'm fucking pissed. Like, I don't want to do anymore. And he's like, do one more, and don't be pissed about it.
Yeah.
He's like, once you're able to do one more and not be pissed about it, that's when you're going to be okay when something like this happens in the games. And then she goes and does one more, and then it goes to like her at the games where she's like basically struggling during one of the parts, and she talks about remembering.
That's
that
maybe
moment.
what they were trying to do with Sarah in the 2016 thing.
Yeah, but just had no connective tissue
None.
to bring those two things together.
None.
Yeah, it's funny. I would remember, and Camille had actually remember that I think a couple years prior to that, one of her first years in the game, she had that meltdown like at the
They
beginning.
actually have that footage too.
Yeah.
That's the
rower
event
one where
her
her
rower doesn't
display
work.
fucks up, and then
That's
she
right.
just starts crying on the thing. Yeah. Interesting.
So she talks about that as well. You know, I think the 2014 games documentary, it's just called 2014 Games.
Yeah.
It's very.
Is it on the Journal right now?
No, it's free. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that.
It's
I
easy
think
to
I've already
miss.
seen it, but
yeah, it's
Well,
easy to
I know
miss.
I've already seen it, but yeah. So, yeah.
But there are there's really great insights. Even thinking about 2014 was just 2 competitive years ago, 3 if you count this year. But like, it seems 1,000 years ago. Rich is talking about how he wins in 2013 and he hated the competition. It was not fun and he didn't have a good time. And then, you know, he was completely committed to retiring. He goes home, and then one day he goes, Hillary calls me and she's like, hey, what are you up to? And he's like, oh, I'm at the track. She's like, what are you doing at the track? He's like, I'm running. I got to get better at running. She goes,
You don't need to get better at running anymore.
so you're not retired, are you? He's like, I'm not retired. I need one more year.
Yeah.
You know, and they do a really good job of building. Again, that was another competition where there was actual drama at the very end, where there's a possibility of Rich not winning, and so they did a good job of playing that out. But they didn't do every fucking event.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that like when talking is like Sivan, you know, made good stuff. I mean, obviously the Tahoe Throwdown, which we've been talking about, was his, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
But even
and
like his old stuff, Pulling John.
yeah,
was
exactly. I
really
was about to
good.
say, it's like, and then if you look back, like he's an actual filmmaker who made real movies, you know, so he knows what he's doing, you know, like, and Pulling John was great, you know, I loved that thing back in the day. But which we saw for the first time at a film festival.
Did you
actually,
really?
yes, yeah,
at the film festival where our thing played, wasn't it?
That's right. South by Southwest 2009, I think, was Pulling John was in competition, and that was the first time I'd ever seen Sivan Matosi. He was there to do a Q&A, and then only later did I find out that he was also then doing a CrossFit stuff. I think he really wasn't involved in CrossFit stuff all that much.
He had done. Well, he definitely shot.
He had shot every second counts, but I don't know if it had been released yet.
Well, South by Southwest is March, right?
So it would have been March 2009. Would have been that year.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah,
so
he must have been just finishing up the editing on that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Cool, right?
Good times, man.
Yeah, and instead now, rather than Sivan with his limited resources making these cool movies, it looks like they're spending a lot more money to make a lot less. So, and that closes the chapter on that page of the book.
I don't know what you mean by spending a lot more money. They licensed a Junkie XL song, okay, for the 20.
Oh, right. Was it Banana, the Wonder Woman thing?
That's a Junkie XL song? No, they licensed the one from Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, okay, cool.
The one song, you know what?
I didn't even know what a Junkie XL was until I was reading Wonder Woman reviews, and they were like, when that weird theme from Batman versus Superman comes in, the Junkie XL theme, and I was like, what the fuck is a Junkie XL? And I looked up, and apparently he did the score for like
he did the thing for Fury Road, and then became very fashionable very quickly.
Yeah.
And then they hired him for Batman versus Superman, and he got to write the Wonder Woman theme
That's
that we
right.
now have to deal with. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically took the lick from Led Zeppelin, right,
Yeah.
and just put it to roaring drums.
Yes.
It's like, what if I put?
I come from the land of the Essence now.
What if I put 150 percussionists together into a room?
Well, he just got fired from Justice League, or not fired, but replaced. So Danny Elfman,
really?
Danny Elfman, I think, is doing.
Danny
Justice League.
Elfman's coming
Yeah.
back for Justice League. What is going on with Justice League?
They're just trying. They're trying to fix it.
Trying to fix it.
Dude.
Maybe Zack Snyder's sad departure, Joss Whedon coming back in. Joss Whedon's kind of cleaning house with a lot of posts
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Because I feel like we're about to go into non-fitness territory. I have one more fitness thing.
We have more fitness stuff. Give
Okay,
it to
do
me.
we?
Yeah, keep going.
No, Facebook informed me just today that we're about a day or two away from your Kneeiversary.
Oh yes, I noticed that.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I actually had to look that up.
From knee injury number 1 or knee injury number 2?
Number one.
Number
So
1.
this is the 2-year anniversary of
Yeah.
the first.
Oh, 2 years. Jeez,
Yeah,
2 years.
2-year anniversary,
Fuck
2-year
me.
2-year Kneeiversary.
That's right. So thankfully, I have fully recovered, and now I'm squatting 500, no problem. So
For reps.
repping it out above.
Turns out
500,
all you
no
need to
problem.
be able to squat 500, just destroy your knee.
Yes,
Twice.
Well, it's like that movie with the kid. who
Rookie
got
of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Yeah, he got injured in the shoulder, and then boom.
That would be awesome.
That's the perfect pitching technique. I want to see someone with that pitching technique going.
Armen's too young for Rookie of the Year.
No.
Yeah, it was a movie about a boy who makes it into the major league because he injures his shoulder in such a way that it allows him to throw a ball really fast, and it was a.
That's a thing.
It was a
That's a
romp.
thing.
It was a whole thing.
Who's the actor? And that sounds really familiar.
I don't know.
The actor was a little kid. Gary Busey was also in it.
Busey was in it,
Busey,
right? That's what I'm
okay,
thinking
yeah.
of.
He was the
That's what I'm thinking
old
of.
beat down pitcher.
Yes.
Who was icing his shoulder the whole time.
That's right.
American Pie.
The guy was in
yeah.
American Pie.
The guy was
Okay.
in American Pie. Yeah.
Nicholas.
There
Wow.
you go.
Would you look at that?
Oh right,
Still
yeah. I remember
alive,
when
yeah.
I saw. Yes, here's how long ago
Shia
American.
LaBeouf's braid.
Here's how long ago American Pie was.
This guy.
Exactly. When I saw American Pie the first
Yes.
time all years ago, the first thought in my head was, "Hey, it's a kid from Rookie of the Year!"
That's
Yay!
right.
Because I was still a child then, pretty much.
Yes, he's no longer a rookie. He's now an American Pie.
Yes. Did you guys see that Reebok now has a fantasy CrossFit Games pick 'em?
I saw that.
Yeah.
You can win $1 million.
Yes, that would be
What do you
nice.
need to accomplish to make the $1 million?
You need to pick the top 10 men, top 10
You just need to
women,
pick who wins the
and
CrossFit Games. If you can pick that, you get a
Top
$1 million.
10
top
in
10 men.
order?
Yep, in order.
In
Top
order.
10 men,
Oh.
top 10 women, and top 5 teams.
Interesting.
Precisely. So you have to get 25 out of 25 correct in the right
I
spots.
think we can do this, you guys. I think we can.
I think it's an easy $1 million.
Yeah, it's just one Rogue Home Gym is the prize, right?
Yeah, so the actual prize, so the actual scoring system is like kind of this complicated thing of, you obviously place your top 10 and you get points based off of how close you are to their actual placing. So the more, if you're like right on the dot, you get 100 points. If you're like a spot away, you get like 50 points or whatever. So it's like you get limited points based off of how close or far you are to the actual ranking at the end of the competition. And they give to like the best total points person. They have like a $20,000 Rogue gift certificate or something.
Sweet.
And then second place seems like a better deal, honestly. It's like a garage gym from Rogue, a year of Whole Foods groceries.
You know what's funny? You say that. I noticed that when I was reading through the things. I was like, surely all of this is included in the first prize
Right.
because there's a lot of cool shit in that second
Yeah,
prize.
second
that I would
place
want.
is really good. Third place is
My
like,
garage is only so big.
right. Third place is like tickets to 2018
Yeah.
CrossFit Games and like a $500 gift card.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's almost no chance anybody's making that full 25
Whoa.
pick run.
No, yeah.
But
I mean, I will obviously.
yeah,
Handsome
except for
Chase.
us. Except for us, which
Yeah.
we're gonna work together. We're gonna go in on it together.
Yeah, if we,
Is
we're
that-
gonna
If
figure
we
it out.
all enter separately with like
No,
good
no,
cards.
Daniel. We all have to enter together
Yes.
on
Okay.
one.
Yes.
You
Okay.
pool your luck and
Yes.
therefore
Into the
have
one.
better probability.
You know, I like
of
that.
winning.
That's a better strategy.
That's right.
That's
You
a
have
way
to
better
pour
strategy. I
all
like
of
that.
your probabilities into the same cup.
Yeah, no.
And therefore, your cup runneth with probability.
This is math,
is this like
right?
a blood ritual kind of thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So Reebok has licensed the CrossFit Games fantasy.
Yeah.
For Pick 'em,
Yeah.
which
so
should be fun to
that
play.
should be all right.
I'm curious to see how people do with that.
Getting them in the right order. I feel like narrowing a top 10 people can be done to a fair degree of accuracy.
Sure.
You know, at least maybe the top 5, less so the 6 through 10.
Yeah.
Putting them in the right order will be tricky.
It will.
Yes, because I
already
don't know the future.
I do know the future. Not tricky for me.
Yes.
I'm actually not allowed to participate because I've already seen how the games go.
Damn it, you guys!
You're a Time Lord.
Can't make a successful bet on that anymore because the 2015 sports almanac that I got,
Yes.
which delivered to me back in 1955. We're past that now.
Yes.
We're beyond the future.
It's true.
We're beyond
Beyond the future.
We have to go
This is-
back to the future.
This is heavy.
Yeah. So that happened. I and now no longer have fitness talk. So this is a
Cool.
really good time.
To
Dude, we're
transition
gonna
to
talk
other
about. Hold on a
stuff.
second. We're gonna talk about
What
something
were we
else.
talking about?
Cliff, you were gonna set you. Did you? What were we talking about right before this? I feel
don't
like we were
know.
talking about something.
Junkie XL?
Junkie.
How was that?
We were talking about Guillermo del Toro's new movie,
Oh, we did before the podcast.
which looks like a prequel to.
It looks like the
Hellboy.
film. It looks like the film that comes between A Cure for Wellness and Hellboy. too. So that it's the film. Like someone was sitting around and saying, "Could we take this one Gore Verbinski movie that came out in 2017 and make it part of the same contiguous universe with 2 Hellboy films that are a decade old?" And he was like, "I've got it." He wrote that movie, and that's what it looks like.
It's like, can I make The Hobbit? Like, no.
No.
Wait, that's Peter Jackson.
Yes. Yes. No.
Well, they still said no to Guillermo del Toro to make
Yeah.
The Hobbit.
Yeah, I think he walked away from that
Yeah.
actually because it was taking forever. 'cause
Yeah,
the
he
rights
wanted to
were
do
all-
other things.
Right, he didn't
and
want
it
to
was-
spend 11 years making
Yeah.
3 cartoon movies about the same
think he-
100-page book.
I think he wanted to spend 11 years in New Zealand making those movies. He didn't want to spend like 3 additional years sitting in New Zealand and not making those movies
Yeah.
because there was a whole legal dispute at the time. Like he was down there to make The Hobbit, ready to go, make it a movie, and then like the rights to the Hobbit novel were somehow in contention, or there was some legal dispute with New Zealand. I don't even fucking remember at this point, but it resulted in the start date kept getting pushed off and pushed off and pushed off and pushed off, and so he had been down there I think for multiple years and not actually started making the movie. And at a certain point he threw in the towel and came back to the States. And then we got Peter Jackson's awesome movies. Did you ever watch? Have we
And
talked about it on the?
Pacific Rim.
Have we talked about it on the podcast the special feature on the DVD where Peter Jackson apologizes pretty much for the Hobbits? Have we talked
No,
about
I
those?
haven't because
Have we
I
not?
did not watch a single one of those movies.
Okay,
I was
all right.
like, I'm not
Here's the thing.
putting myself through this.
They're really bad. So they are
Yes.
very, very bad. But here's the thing: you look at it and you think like, my God, like there's no. I mean, how bad they are. Is you remember just like finishing like Fellowship of the Ring, and you were like you were anxious to see what happened with the characters when they showed up at the beginning of the next movie. You were like, finally we get to see. I remember going in for I think the second one and like seeing a guy running around trying to kill Smaug or whatever, and not remembering who he was, like literally not remembering who he was. Like, oh yeah, that guy was like the star of the last.
No, and
movie.
that's actually a really good point. Is there just for the original, Lord of the Rings trilogy, in that they were able to make so many long-haired, bearded characters who look kind of the same feel distinct.
That's
right.
But so here's what they do this like, and this kind of became somewhat viral after it, and I believe it was a special feature on like the third one's Blu-ray release or something. But it was a segment where they more or less just. It's everyone in the production just talking about the fact that, like, listen, guys, due to all those legal disputes and delays and things, like, the time between when, like, Peter had to take over as director and when we shot was super short. So, and they say, like, there's literally, like, they talk to the special effects people, like, yeah, there was no, like, like us taking pictures of like racks of finished equipment. Like we're literally making shit right before it goes on screen the whole time. And they said that Peter Jackson, rather than having storyboarded this whole vision for the film, was like making up what like his shot plans minutes before that it was before they would actually shoot. And they show like footage of him just walking around like clearly fried out of his mind, just trying to figure out, like, I just need a few minutes to walk around this giant castle set and figure out what the sequence is before we start shooting it.
How stressful is that? Oh, God. I'm like itchy just thinking about that.
No, seriously.
I stress out over my shitty job, like when I get an email and it's like, oh no, hold on a second, I need
with
3
a
days.
crew of 500 people
3
and
days to
billions of
respond
dollars
to this
riding on it.
email.
Yes,
Peter Jackson's running around trying to figure out like a $200 million movie.
Imagine on the spot. But there's the thing, that's the fucked up part, especially if you've ever directed anything before, coming up with it on the spot every day for like months, like coming in and just give me some time, I need to figure this out. And then the saddest part is like it gets to a point at the end where you're like, why is this 3 films? It's just a cash grab. You realize that like they literally got to a point where like he didn't know how to proceed. Like we were getting to the battle stuff, the Battle of 5 Armies stuff, and they had nothing planned. So like they said that like we decided to like take a couple days to try and figure it out. So they sent like Andy Serkis, who was like the second unit director, to go shoot like random footage in front of green screens of like guys clashing swords, while like Peter Jackson tried to in a couple days figure out how to do the Battle of the 5 Armies. And then at a certain point he was so fried he just tapped out, and they decided to just cut off production for a year and then figure out how to do it and just make it a separate movie.
What?
Yes.
Holy
that's
shit.
real. That shit's real. So they just like they literally were just so lost and confused, and were so flying by the seat of their pants at a certain point that they just halted production and said, you know all that ending shit? Just make it a separate movie. And that's why it's 3 movies. And like the entire special feature has, and we know that Peter Jackson's big into special features and does like the Weta does like all their special features in house and stuff. So we know this is kind of coming from them. Just it feels like, I strongly recommend watching it. Just like a 5 to 10 minute like short documentary that's an apology, basically saying like, you guys don't know what was happening back here. It was real bad, you guys. It was real bad.
Oh, that
But like they have shots of him like huge castle sets and green screens and cranes, and like everyone just kind of standing off to the side. Peter Jackson with like his hands on his hips, just wandering around the set, looking like death, just trying to like, all right, where are the dwarves gonna go? Oh boy.
Oh jeez. Oh man.
It really will give you. It will like raise your blood pressure.
That
just
is.
watching.
I'm like. I feel like my.
tense,
That was just describing that moment to me. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thing, is that I don't know. So it's just like with all. So it's that's another thing I find funny, and this is kind of only tangentially related. I love watching like especially like film bloggers and stuff, like armchair quarterback movies, and like, well, in a clear cash grab they broke this off, and this was like there's so much crazy shit that happens behind the scenes of every movie. This obviously is an extreme example, but you will never know on a film on that scale why anything is or isn't there at any given moment. So it's just. Yeah, but it's crazy. So,
did you guys see the trailer for the Room? The movie?
The
what's it called?
The Disaster Artist.
The Disaster Artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have never actually seen The Room.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
really?
but I did watch the trailer. This is the trailer for the film where it's about the making of The Room, where James Franco plays Tommy Wiseau or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And
Based
so,
off
I'd
of
never
the
even heard of
book
this.
that was like written like as a they went in and researched
And
everything.
I had to watch the scene that they're trying to shoot.
Oh yeah.
And it is disturbingly spot on.
Yeah.
It is so spot on. So I mean, the trailer is really funny. Yeah. It's basically a 90-second scene from the film,
from the movie,
where they're trying to shoot this one scene where he walks out of onto like a green screen roof and
has to
delivers
nail like
line.
one terrible line.
And it like goes over, you know, like 100 million takes or whatever, and he keeps fucking it up, and finally he delivers it in like the worst possible way. And everyone loses their mind. But it's basically the cast of Pineapple Express and other comedians.
I'm seeing all the guys I like on here. It's great.
It's very it's very funny.
No, I imagine there will be screenings of The Room prior to this. We should go to one. It is a fun experience. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah, no doubt the double feature.
Apparently, well, they will definitely double feature it. And apparently, I mean, the buzz out of South by for this was like for the it was like an assembly cut or something like that. Is good.
Yeah. There's parts of the trailer you can see that the actors are trying not to laugh. Like the actors in the back are trying not to laugh at how badly he's fucking up the lines. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna have to watch this trailer later. Yeah, no, The Room, super fun. And like one of the things about the room, like screenings of The Room, is there are like rituals, like Rocky Horror style things you can do. Including the one that my friends and I chose to partake in college, which is anytime there's a scene where a football is thrown, getting up and across your aisle, tossing a football over your aisle.
How common is that? That
one happens only sometimes. There's a sequence of like there are paintings like their sets are really cheap. Everything's kind of garbage, but there's like a picture, I believe, a picture or a painting of a spoon that shows up every once in a while, and at that point, you throw spoons. Like it's I get it.
Yeah. We should give that a shot. We'll see how it goes.
You should give it a shot. I mean, just in general, it's a fun movie to watch, and especially with a good crowd.
Two more things. The new Blade Runner 2049 trailer is really pretty.
It's very pretty.
It's so pretty. I want to be in that trailer.
Oh, wait! Update regarding Blade Runner. I watched Enemy, the Denis Villeneuve movie.
How is that an update regarding this movie?
Because it's the same director.
Yeah, but he has a lot of other movies you haven't seen yet.
Now I've seen one more of them.
What was the other Denis Villeneuve movie that I'm so pissed at you for not
I haven't
seeing?
seen Prisoners. I haven't seen
anyway
many of them. And again, Enemy was fine. Enemy is like a really, really, really kind of on the nose David Cronenberg homage, in that it's like, you know, everything from like the Toronto-based setting to a lot of it's just weird, like, and like very kind of the surreal era of Cronenberg.
This is Jake Gyllenhaal playing two characters.
Yeah,
in this
like
movie,
Videodrome era.
What I want to know is, though, it's an homage cinematically to Cronenberg, but do we see any Cronenbergs in it?
Yes, no Cronenbergs.
No Cronenbergs.
Really Cronenberg the whole world up there. But down to the fact that like there's this blonde chick who plays like Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the Jake Gyllenhaal's his wife in it, and she's like in like 3 David Cronenberg movies and stuff. So and it's set in Toronto, and it has 2 of the same guy, just like Dead Ringers did, and it very much feels it feels very much like a direct homage to like a Videodrome era David Cronenberg, down to just like being opaque, but perhaps more opaque than any David Cronenberg film ever has. Like, there's a series of weird images and things and stuff happens, and then it's ultimately completely indecipherable and stuff. And it is what it is. It became hard for me to view it on its own, because at a certain point it became very, very clear that the entire film was in constant dialogue with like the filmography of David Cronenberg, from casting to tone to everything else. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is a good homage. They're both Canadian, I guess, so I guess he
seems similar to what's the ballerina movie. What's it? The
Black Swan.
Black Swan. Very much like Black Swan. There, not with the David Cronenberg, but the other things.
I really like the way that movie looks, Blade Runner. Does he work with the same cinematographer every time?
Who's the cinematographer? Oh, this is Roger Deakins on this, I believe. The man,
the guy,
yeah. But here's the thing. All right, let's break down Blade Runner for a second in terms of like why is Blade Runner worth watching, the original and stuff.
Well, according to you guys, it's not.
It isn't. But watching it on mute, which is I think the best way to watch it, can be very rewarding, because Ridley Scott, during that period, I mean, coming up from commercial background and all of that stuff, was at kind of the height of his powers. And he, to this day, I think, is good at one thing, which is making, very expensive-looking images, not necessarily at directing movies, because he's made, like, 3 good ones, I'd say, in his career. But he was a master at making these, like, gorgeous, very robust images, which is tough. It's not just cinematography. It's everything that's within the frame that he is the master of. And if you look at Blade Runner especially, and also is applicable to Legend and some of the others, but Blade Runner is sort of the archetypal one. There's not a single frame in that movie that does not have some kind of moving light or crazy atmospheric idea that's at play, that's dancing across the screen, that is keeping the frame alive, that is making it gorgeous. So, I mean, there's a lot that's going on visually, but just pay attention specifically to that one notion. Like, okay, it's a cool, like, temple-like office. We'll just notice the fact that, like, they have created the artificial illusion of water reflecting on all the walls and stuff inside. Or they're in an interior apartment, but there's lights, like ostensibly flashing through the blinds, but they're moving lights. They're not static lights through the line, but they're moving. And the other thing that happens when you create a robust visual palette, and again, that's through all of Blade Runner. There's like a spinning fan, or at the end, there's rain falling, smoke rising, fan spinning in the background, all of this amazing movement and atmosphere. Which is very...
You know it's the climax of the film because there's so
much. So much, exactly. And then that allows you to do all sorts of things. It allows you to have this very robust, like, aural palette as well, because it's like, all right, so I have the water reflections, so you have like these chime sounds. You have this, when you have those lights coming in through the blinds, you can add the sounds of spaceships in the background. There's rain, there's smoke, there's crowds, there's moving lights. There's, of course, obviously the huge panels full of all the advertisements that are going on. It is definitely, I think, the high point of the most indulgence in just creating a robust visual palette in a film that I don't think has ever really been matched. It's kind of hitting like with the peak of a lot of those kind of practical effects and matte paintings, like Douglas Trumbull's work on all of the special effects, all of that stuff. Is it like you just are never going. It's basically like walking into like a palace or like the Vatican. It's just like they sure don't cover ceilings with all of this gilded shit anymore. Like that's the most amount of gilded shit that you could. That doesn't make it an awesome house, but you gotta be kind of stand back and be like, man, there's a lot of gold shit on this ceiling. And that's kind of how I feel about Blade Runner. It's like I look at it, I'm like, man, there's a lot of shit in this. Like every frame, like that's just a guy standing there. Why is there like there's like a sign in the background, there's 40 extras in the foreground, there's rain falling, there's like a plastic tarp that's like flapping with artificial wind because this was all shot, and I'm just like, man, there's a lot of shit going on. And I think a lot of people react to that because they see it and they're like, it's visually so arresting, you know. And the same thing with Legend, which Legend is just a film that I have a particular affinity for. I realize it's not a good movie, but it's the same thing. In Legend, it's like particles of pollen flying up out of the thing, and sunlight, and beams of shit, and snow falling, and glitter on Tom Cruise's face for no goddamn
Everything
reason.
has glitter on it all the time.
Everything has glitter all the time. Fire and smoke and all this. Same shit. And so it's like, I appreciate Blade Runner, you know, in that way. It's like walking into like Versailles or something like that. But now when I look at like the Blade Runner 2049 trailer, all we're seeing is not just it is very robust visually, but they're all direct quotations of techniques that were utilized in. So they have like the moving light from spaceships, they have the reflective water light,
right.
They have the neon, they have the smoke rising up off the street, the big things. It's like it's all just like and none of it is quite as good as the stuff in the original Blade Runner. You know, it's a little bit thin by comparison. So it's just essentially like someone quoting something, you know? That's what it looks like when I see it. So
Fair enough.
Hopefully it'll be a good movie because, you know, or have a good script.
Yeah, but this goes to another point here. It's like because of how profound it is visually, and because people watching movies for the most part who are amateurs, meaning 99.999% of movie watching public who don't make movies in any form or fashion, they get the sense that there's something profound happening just from the visuals, but they see the whole movie as a unity and can't separate out what it is that they like or think is profound from the other things. So they get a profound feeling from seeing these visuals and then attribute profundity in a haphazard way to everything that's happening.
True.
They think that, oh, the story must be profound, or there must be profound themes, or there must be profound...
100%.
And there is nothing going on in Blade Runner. It is such a dull, boring, nonsensical, stupid movie.
Things.
Yes, like that nonsensical speech at the end.
How dare
Can
you?
we just talk about how much Ridley Scott sucks for a while? Because it's like I'm really only coming to appreciate it because like truthfully, like and this is I was recently watching a video where someone was going into some more historical stuff about the whole like is Harrison Ford a replicant thing. It's like literally it comes from nowhere other than Ridley Scott being kind of like probably clinically retarded, just like insisting like I got it in my head that maybe he was a replicant, and like the writers like said no, that is not the case. Harrison Ford, no, that is clearly dumb. Like all the people associated with the production, the producers, the author, like everyone around was like no, that makes like everyone is on record as saying that makes like that was not something we were talking about on set. That's not like that's very dumb and doesn't have anything to do with what we were trying to make as a movie, and it's just crazy old Ridley, and it's proof that he didn't just become senile like in his later years, because if you listen
he's
to
always been this way.
Yes, he's always been, he was like kicked in the head by a fucking donkey. So he has this savant like capacity to create these amazing visuals, and just apparently zero ability to discern any other aspect of storytelling. I was listening to him in an interview, I think it was either associated with Prometheus or Alien Covenant, and he was literally saying something to this effect. He's like, well, I like to come in with all of the blocking and all of the shots already planned out on all the boards. I'm like, that's not surprising. And then sometimes you get these actors who are like, I would like to maybe do something different in the scene, and so I point at the boards like, you're gonna do something better than that, and like, come show me something. And then they're like, well, I can't think of anything, and I'm like, that's right. And I'm like, what a nightmare this man must be. Like, this is it's like, and I don't know. And then recently, there's more chunks. Like, just look up anything that he has to say about either Blade Runner 2049 or Alien Covenant recently, and just put it through the filter of a crazy old man who doesn't know, who's just like in a bathrobe that's hanging open so you can clearly see both of his testicles, and he's just drinking like orange juice, but like out of a coffee mug, and. That's Ridley Scott, and that really helps you understand a lot of it. And occasionally he stumbles across a really good script, like Matchstick Men is a great movie, Martian being his most recent success, which really is successful because of Drew Goddard's involvement, not Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott just happened to be along for the ride. But yeah, just a crazy, crazy old man who's very good at shooting pretty pictures.
Like Gladiator.
Yes, like Gladiator. Oscar winner Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, crazy old man. The official scales needed stance.
Yes.
You guys, Game of Thrones came back.
It did.
And it's time for us
to start doing Game of Thrones recap.
Yeah! That's right. Dun 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 dun. That's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe next week.
All right, episode
this is the only time we're relevant, guys.
Season 7. We have so much time. Fantastic.
All right, let's really get into it, you guys.
Just a deep, sweaty dive into what is really kind of whatever episode.
We got to see all of the characters, and we're reminded that they still exist.
That's right. It was like, welcome back to Game of Thrones. Previously on Game of Thrones, everyone started traveling somewhere. Now on Game of Thrones, everyone's gotten where they were traveling to.
Like they have this thing where they do that. Like, I mean, I feel like that's the first episode of every season is it's a check-in episode. Yeah. Like, we're gonna get to every single place on the map in the beginning so that yes, they're all still alive.
Right.
Yes, we're gonna see things with them. Yep. And then next episode, fewer characters.
Or different revelations. Littlefinger, he hasn't gone anywhere.
No, he hasn't.
That's right. He hasn't. He's in the same place. Remember at the end when he arrived? He stayed put.
My accents and I are still here.
Well, I'm going to tell you about
so just a quick... I mean, you know what? Okay, so compared to the other version of that, which is you pick up where season 6 ended and everyone's just kind of in transit places.
I really want to know.
So boring.
I really want to know what Daenerys was doing on the boat.
Yeah,
like what were they doing on the boats?
How did she make such an awesome dragon-themed costume?
Well, and this I have to say though that at least because we were talking about this being a check-in episode, like 2 seasons ago when we were still in like book territory, there was like I forget which season it was, but it was like a 4-episode arc that was like the check-in, everyone's travel. Like the first 4 episodes of one of the seasons just felt like people on their way. At least now that we're getting into this schlocky post-book territory where clearly they're going off the rails. At least like Daenerys spent the first episode like arriving at King's Landing or wherever she is. Not King's Landing.
They are now
Dragonstone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're now basically. Now that they are no longer shackled to the book series A Song of Ice and Fire, they can look at George R.R. Martin and say, "You're going to die soon. You're not going to finish these books. We're going to go ahead and just forge our own way."
It's amazing. You can really feel
better way.
Yes, you can really feel the quality of the language and the and just the beat by beat. Just really take a dive. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm taking it for what it is. As we were talking about before with Blade Runner, I'm enjoying it contextually. But it is funny because all of the like clever, like witty bits of dialogue and interesting scenes or character introductions or things that like subvert expectations, all gone. And instead now
we've
it's
only had one episode.
No, this started happening. This started happening at the end of last.
This has been going on for a little bit.
Yeah, this started happening at the end of last season.
Do you remember the Sand Snake plot line?
Yeah, it's
that
like
was an invention.
It's becoming Westworld at this point. Not in the craziness, but I mean, it's just like literally. It's just like okay, this has just become a television show, and it's delivering to you exactly what you're expecting to happen.
I will say the Sand Snake plotline in the shows was god awful, but way better than it was in the books. Because in the books, it takes up even more space and time, and it is even less useful. That's how I felt about it. Whatever.
Yeah, that's wrong. But
fair enough. Either way, I didn't hear a single word from Tyrion. Pissed. Come on, dude. If you're gonna have him in the show, you have to have him say something.
That sure was a whole lot of her arriving at the.
I don't mind her walking into the
castle. Fine, I guess.
Well, it is literally the thing she has been trying to do since episode 1 of this series.
Yes, that's true.
Like you're allowed to take some time for that.
Here though is what's sort of. But here's what bummed me out about last season and what I'm realizing. I haven't read most of the books. I read like the first half of the second book, and that's about it up to that point. But here's what is just bumming me out about Game of Thrones in general and George R.R. Martin in general is I think the whole series, I was hoping it would have genuinely unexpected turns and developments to bring you to genuinely unexpected places, but realizing that his broad plan for the whole thing is really just a standard Hollywood 3-act movie. And by a 3-act movie, I mean the kind of structure I don't particularly like. A 3-act structure introduces everybody in the first act, in the first 30 minutes, sets up the situation. It's speed. You know, the first act is they are on the bus, and they're on the bus, and the bus is driving.
And Lannister always repays his debts.
Exactly. And now, but once the first act is set up, usually
I thought you'd be colder.
Usually, you can. The problem with the 3-act structure is that usually the way most of it is written, you can predict everything that is going to happen for the rest of the movie based on just the first act. And good movies, like I don't know, like Quentin Tarantino or something. You know, doesn't really whatever. Usually, you can definitely not predict from the first act, from the first beats, where it's going to go. There will be unexpected turns and all that. Whereas, really, take the first season of Game of Thrones as the first act. Is there anything that's happened so far of consequence in terms of where it's going that you couldn't predict based on just the first season? Meaningful.
Well, here's the thing: is like I think that the path has been more circuitous than that necessarily.
Some minor characters died.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's kind of what my point is. Like that seeing lots of these bigger characters fall away. While in retrospect, we now look back at, Rob and his mom and all these people as being less significant characters. Now, they were a big part of what felt like the central thrust and the central trajectory of the story.
Right.
They did the story at that point. Rob and his mom were not. Peripheral characters.
They were the main fucking characters.
Jon Snow was the peripheral character at that point. So in that sense, up to a certain point, they've done and this is kind of what I'm talking about now, where it's delivering things that are satisfying, but delivering things in an unexpected way. Like the one of the best examples being the wonderful setup between the fight between half Thor and that guy.
Yeah.
It's just like you're setting up an expectation for a given narrative situation to play out, and then directly subverting that expectation to only thrust us deeper into a kind of uncertainty and raise the stakes in a way so that, like, holy shit, how is Tyrion going to get out of this? Because we can see where the trajectory is going. Oh, a champion steps forward who's he formerly had issues with, and they're just going to fight it out against the mountain. We're all going to go, all right, cool. And then completely throwing a wrench in the gears.
That was peak Game of Thrones.
That was peak Game of Thrones.
That like 3
and that
episodes was fucking
well, and like
peak
and that is
Game of Thrones.
hardcore book territory.
Yeah, that's right. That is directly from the pages of the book.
That is the tone. And that's happening on a macro level, like with Ned Stark dying and all of that. It's happening on a micro level, and even it's happening scene by scene. In that how you enter into a given scene or how you enter into a given character is often twisted or subverted in some clever way that makes you go, oh, that's cool. And it all feels gone now. And instead, it's a lot like most other TV dramas, which is a lot of characters walking around and saying and doing the things you would expect them to do. Even taking the opening of this episode, spoilers ahead, everybody, where we see that Arya kill all of the Freys, you know, that it has some potential there, but you said it. You kind of know exactly what's going to happen within the first few seconds in that scene,
right?
And just another side point: the language of it was so below the language of the previous season. So he's like, so literally, it was like draft one kind of stuff where he's like, yes, I invited you all in here, and then you invited some people over, and you killed a mother of 5, and you stabbed a pregnant woman, and you did so. And then I was just like I'm like.
I thought Arya was cleverer than that.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
even the phrase
in previous seasons, she was.
Yes, and even the phrase "mother of 5" is a utterly contemporary syntax. You know, it's like anything that it feels wrong and it feels weird and it feels like we're watching like The Tudors on Showtime or something right now instead of Game of Thrones. And it's like everything has been lowered significantly. And again, not saying I'm not enjoying it. It's fine. It is what it is. But I have to now view it through this lens of this is not a show. Like if an episode like this or characters like this had played out like this in a previous season, it would have been disappointing because I'm expecting to be twisted. I'm expecting that if I'm being led in a direction, it's only so that I can get fucked with and turned around, and only something more satisfying will happen. And now I pretty much just expect that whatever it is I'm expecting to happen is going to happen, and I bet it will. You know, that's it.
And I think a lot of this is telegraphed by previous seasons, wherein the things that were invented by the showrunners and were not a part of the book were always consistently the weakest things going on. Like, I don't know, how do we get Jon Snow to get in a fight this season? Well, there could be a rape camp up north. Cool, yeah, let's go do that.
Rape camp.
Yeah.
This idea's getting a lot of traction.
They definitely had to purge some parts of the book, obviously for a lot of different reasons. But like, there's some significant pieces of the book that just aren't involved in the season
I mean,
now,
like
which make like massive changes to the cast.
Well, and that's why I'm really
storylines.
interested, honestly, in how the end of these books will differ drastically from the show. There are entire swaths and forces of armies that do not exist in the show. Yeah. There are entire side characters that have great bearing on like the way the plot will play out they do not exist in the show. Yeah. Like there's a lot of stuff going on that I think is kind of interesting, and I'm really hoping that we're going to hit that kind of Storm of Swords territory where we hit with, I guess, was it season 3 and 4, where things are going to end up moving so fast that maybe we'll forget that like it's not quite working out the way we would hope. Like that it'll start just ramping up again. It's like, all right, cool, we're on a roller coaster now.
I remember talking a couple years ago with some people about like, oh, what's going to outpace the books pretty soon, blah blah blah. And they were talking about, well, what's going to happen? Is George R.R. Martin, is he going to have, like, I have it figured out sufficiently, and this is what I was thinking at the time, that he's going to tell them, kind of where things are headed, and it'll sync up. And then someone at that point had said to me, or they'll just do their own show version, and George R. R. Martin will intentionally go off and just write a completely different version in the books that's wildly different, just for the sake of surprising the audience. And I remember thinking at the time, like, so that seems improbable to me that would be the way it would go. But now, as I'm watching it, I'm just like, this appears to be playing out in such an utterly banal way. And now that the books have been left in the dust, he's in no hurry. So it would not surprise me if he, in fact, with the books, just goes on a complete variation and goes out into some wild direction that has nothing to do with the show.
In the book version, Daenerys will be stabbed by Varys there. He'll have actually betrayed her, the bald eunuch guy. And she won't ever make it to Dragonstone, and whole new shit will happen. Who controls the dragons now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'd be more interested in that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people. There are even people in places interacting with other characters in the show that haven't met yet, and aren't even on a trajectory to meet yet in the book. So you're right. There is a place and a possibility in which, like, the series and the books, it sounds stupid, but they have wildly different endings.
I think they'll ultimately get to the same place, but on different
I'm with
paths.
Daniel on this one.
Like that, and that's the thing. It's like, just because,
which hurts
like,
to say,
the way it is, the way that it's set up in the books right now, there is just a lot more to cover. There's a lot more to do, and also, like, once again, like, Jaime never went to Dorne in the in the books. Never happened. Was not a thing. The Sand Snakes, way cooler in the books.
Yeah,
like,
they did not suck.
They did not suck in the way they did. But there's a fucking, spoilers for the books. Lady Stoneheart's a goddamn thing in the books, and like that shit would have been awesome to see on TV. Yeah. But
that
fuck
seems
it,
a
whatever.
no-brainer, man. I guess.
Right? I remember, actually, not only is Lady Stoneheart, which is, again, spoiler alerts,
zombie Catelyn.
It's zombie Catherine Stark come back, and not only is she alive, but she's pissed, and she hangs Brienne as like the last time you check in.
The
with
last
them.
the last time you check in with Brienne. So there's two things here, and actually it's really interesting.
There we go.
It's so the last time you check in with Brienne, like from her own point of view, it's her and Pod in a noose, like each in a noose.
That's right.
She has the Lannister sword with her, and the Oathkeeper or whatever, and I guess Lady Stoneheart has taken over the guys who the Hound is hanging out with right now in the show.
Yeah, she's with
and use them to essentially start.
No, what his name is?
Beric Dondarrion.
Dondarrion.
Yeah. And is using them to raid Lannister lands and fuck up any Lannister they see. Period. Anyone if Ed Sheeran had seen Lady Stoneheart, he'd be fucking dead.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Like, they literally,
not just dead on the inside as he is,
as he is currently.
Yeah.
And so she gets caught by by Lady Stoneheart. And she's told, you can either, betray your Jaime or whatever, or we hang all of you. And then, like, it's said that she screams out one word, and then it's, like, gone. Next chapter. Right. But then, later on, she meets up with Jaime again, and it's heavily implied that she is taking him to Lady Stoneheart to be dead.
Good times.
So Jaime, at this point, has broken it off with Cersei entirely, and they're not hanging out anymore. It's not a thing.
Well,
like, we're in completely different spaces here.
Yeah, there's I thought my understanding was when they first approached, and this could just be Hollywood marketing bullshit, but when they first approached George R. R. Martin to see if they would make a Game of Thrones TV show, the showrunners were like talking to him about like how much they read the books and what they love about it and all this sort of stuff, and he basically asked them like two things. He said, like, do you understand what the story is about, like who the main characters are and why they're doing what they're doing, and the second thing is, what's the ending? And that they not only were able to like pick up on all the little hints and stuff at like the massive clues that
it was, it wasn't the ending, it was who's Jon Snow's mother.
Is that what the question was?
Well, there you go. Everyone by that point already knew it anyway.
Right.
Like,
so yeah, we'll see.
Who fucking cares? It's a great TV show. Keep fucking watching.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say
we'll see more shit happening.
There was a severe lack of titties in this episode.
Not enough,
right? I mean,
were there any titties?
HBO. Yeah, it's HBO. There should have been like have been a scene with tits. I don't understand.
Opening
What's
salvo boobs for the rest of the
What's the point?
first season.
What's the point of having a show on HBO if you're not going to just like have unnecessary
Like,
amounts of
I
weird.
don't know.
The B in HBO stands for boobies.
Yeah.
Yes. The home.
Holy boobies! Oh. All right. I think that's a good way to wrap this
Yeah.
up.
What else happened? The Hound.
Yeah, the
Who's in
Hound had his whole moment.
Yeah,
Like,
he
where
had-
we're like,
he had
yeah,
a-
he's a good guy now. You know, he cares about dead people.
That castle thing that she goes into at the end, that I guess that's where Stannis was before.
Yeah,
but we
yes.
never saw
Yeah,
it
we
in
saw
its
it outside.
entirety.
We
We
saw,
just
like-
saw the one tiny room.
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
tiny room that had the
No,
board on it.
the last time we saw it was when they had small budget, and
Right.
and now, like, 'cause it was literally like the last time we saw it was season 2, right?
Ah.
That was when Stannis was preparing to go out and like fuck Renly's shit up and fuck everyone else up.
Game of Thrones, the previous seasons of it, are in for, and I would support the idea of doing a special edition style version, updating the CGI,
Just putting
with
Anakin
everything.
Skywalker, putting Hayden Christensen in
Yeah.
everything.
Exactly.
He's just in every scene a
Yeah,
ghost.
just,
Sam.
just have
It
George
gets
Lucas
everywhere.
spearhead that process there, and then just to retrofit the previous seasons to bring them up to the look and the production
Yeah.
level of the later seasons.
Oh, just to bring things back to Star Wars for a second, another strong recommendation for everyone is to watch. Red Letter Media put out a video this morning. It's about a half hour long, and it's them just theorizing for a half hour about what the plot, like, and scenes beat by beat of the new Han Solo movie is gonna be. And it's just great because it's Mike and Rich Evans, and they're just talking for like a half hour about, God, what are some of the golden bits are like, and then he's gonna be thrown into prison where he's gonna meet Chewie, but like someone's gonna try and put Chewie in shackles, and he's like, I don't want to put the handcuffs on, and then he's gonna encounter the bat thing from the inside of the thing, and he's gonna be like, Mylocks, oh no, and like it's also just
no,
they're
someone will explain to him what Mylocks are.
exactly there, so he knows what they
So
are.
now he knows what they are in the future.
Yes, exactly, and it just goes on, just setting everything up, and just the hilarious bit is just like it's like, and of course he's gonna be orphaned by two parents, and then the two parents, of course, were actually members of the Rebel Alliance, and they're gonna go off on a mission and get killed, and then so when he grows up, he's gonna be like, man, fighting for a cause is a good way to get dead. You should fight for yourself. It's just like all of these things.
Well, and he's gonna have a mentor character when they're flying around in some like area, and like they're gonna be like, fly casual, Han, fly casual.
Yeah. And this is not the Lord and Miller version we would have seen. This is Lawrence Kasdan just taking it all over.
But it's just all like, and it's just amazing to cringe through the whole video because it's hilarious. But it's just like it's just they've perfectly captured the tone of Force Awakens and Rogue One, in just that everything is essentially a really clunky setup for things that, you know, minor details.
Right. I mean,
in
the
later
entire
films.
plot is how he gets the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Oh, and they were talking about that, the trajectory of it, of just being like, and so of course we're gonna meet Jabba and how he's gonna owe him money.
That's right.
And then,
That's right.
But the very same mission that indebts him is gonna be the same mission on which he makes a bet with Lando that gets him the Millennium Falcon,
Yeah.
and like all of this.
And the
yeah.
third act
Who's
is going to
playing
resolve
Lando? Who's
itself.
playing Lando?
Donald
Is
Glover.
it Donald
Childish
Glover?
things.
Okay.
Donald Glover.
And the third act will resolve itself with the Kessel Run.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
Where else could it
In
go?
25 parsecs.
Where else could it go?
But 12 parsecs.
12 parsecs,
But the other thing was theorized, it was great. It's like, but they're going to finally explain that because he's going to fly the Millennium Falcon so close to a black hole that it compresses the distance in space time, so he actually makes the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Or whatever. Anyway, strong recommend it. Red Letter Media. It's on. It
I
was
saw,
posted today.
I saw a photo. Ron Howard posted a photo of young Chewie. And
right. So it's like a silhouette. You can't really see much.
And I was kind of confused because we've seen young Chewie already, like
Yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
episode 3.
Yeah.
And he looks
And he did not-
exactly like normal Chewie.
Yeah.
True.
And
Yeah.
like this young Han Solo Chewie is like young teenage
With a
Chewie.
mohawk.
Yep.
He's got pink tips. He's got a
Cool
problem
earrings.
with authority.
Uh-oh, we'll need another special edition of the prequels to make this Chewie match the Han Solo prequel movie Chewie.
Yeah.
So that episode 3.
You know, we
And there won't be any
Solo
weapons
Solo
left over, and then Han will find one, and it's the crossbow. He's like, "Here, Chewie, try this one out." And then take it. Like, ooh, that looks cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you
I
know,
won't
there's
try
gonna
that
be-
one for another 30 years.
He's gonna meet Greedo.
Of course.
They'll
yeah.
bump shoulders with Greedo, and they won't like each other.
By the way, like one of my favorite was like they're like, and then somehow he's ended up on Tatooine, and you're gonna see a little boy running by, and then two people are gonna be like, "Come on, Luke," and he's gonna like look at him, and you're gonna hear a little bit of Luke's theme, and then someone's like, "Bah, bah," and then someone will like bump into Han Solo, like, "Bro, excuse me, out of my way," and then they'll just continue.
The person who bumps into him is gonna be the guys from the bar that get their arm cut off.
Yes, exactly. Except they showed up in.
They were in Rogue One.
That's right. They were in Rogue One.
No, they're very well traveled. They're very well traveled.
I forgot. Were those same ass? I forget most of Rogue One.
Yes, those same assholes were in Rogue One.
Yeah, there's literally a scene where like they bump into
or whatever.
Our main characters.
Watch where you're going.
Boy.
My friend took that as an insult.
Well, at least we can be, I hope, confident that this film will not lead directly to the cantina where then like Chewie goes and talks to Obi-Wan.
Holy shit, can you imagine if it ends with the beginning? That's exactly
with a CGI Alec Guinness and a CGI youngified what's his head?
Mark Hamill and a young Han Solo.
But you know that idea has been tossed around.
Oh God, of course.
Yeah. Turns out he got the Millennium Falcon like literally days
like a week before. Yeah,
he ran the Kessel Run and won that bet days before that.
Yeah, that actually would make sense if all the details Han told about his backstory were lies. That would actually fit with the character. Why not?
Yeah, incidentally, that's true. Up. That's true. Like it would be. Wouldn't it be crazy? Like that would be almost a cooler backstory. Yeah. It's like his name isn't even Han Solo. That's someone else's name, and he just assumed his identity, and he's just some rogue guy. That would be cooler, right?
He never once has flown that ship.
Yep. Oh, there's another great one which I thought is like the opening will another theoretical. The opening will be him, but he'll be on his parents' freighter ship, and they're just and then they're gonna be pulled over by the Empire, and they're gonna find out that he's gonna find out that his parents are smuggling stuff, but under the floorboards, exactly like they hide in the smuggling chambers. Anyway.
Yeah, and he's gonna run into the gangs from Episode 7.
Yes,
of course.
What gangs?
What else? The gangs that like board his ship.
Oh, right.
The raid guys are featured and not ever utilized in that.
Yep.
They just get used as like fodder for some alien
CG space ball.
They get used for a J.J. Abrams scene.
That's right.
Like the you have to do it J.J. Abrams scene. We're like, look, something is happening, and it's like a big Rube Goldberg machine.
That's really funny because he does that.
He does in every movie. Yes, that was the
in
Star Trek engine scene.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's good times.
Oh yeah, I hate that scene. I hate it so much.
Or the Star Trek the your tongue is numb. That scene where just constantly what happened to my hands? And he pulls his hands up and they're all swollen. That was really funny. Made me chuckle. All right, Carl Urban, very very funny.
He's a good guy.
That's it. I'm gonna stop right there.
Cool.
We're done. I don't want to talk about anything else, guys.
Yeah.
The energy's dropping.
Yeah. So, are we doing Nose Torque Mile next
when does
week?
That happen?
No.
Thank God.
We need a lot of planning.
Yeah,
to get all the pyrotechnics in order.
Oh man,
you joke.
Anyway, we'll touch on reviews later. I don't think we need to touch on the reviews right now.
We're when we set our next goal, that's when we'll start doing reviews again.
That's right.
But yes, Nose Torque Mile coming up. I gotta plan it out. There's things
will happen at some point. It'll happen after the games. You'll be able to take it over then. Kyle, your social media.
I am at Mr. Kyle Bogart on the best goddamn Instagram account on the internet.
I'm at Cliff Bogart on a slowly growing Instagram account on the internet.
I'm at a Supersonic Man on Instagram, Twitter, etc., and I host Hot Tag, available on iTunes.
What's up? I'm at Chase504 on all the things.
He didn't even remember what he was
playing Minesweeper
What's
over
up?
there.
Hey guys.
Downloaded a Windows 96 emulator just to play the pinball machine.
Oh, yes.
And that was broken, so he played Minesweeper.
So he plays it to play an Addams Family pinball machine emulator.
Good times. And I am at Armen Hoyce. Thanks, guys, for listening. Really appreciate what you are doing by listening to the show. And we will be back next week, probably with even more Game of Thrones stuff.
Yes.
One more episode's worth.
That's true. At least one more episode's worth.
And if we recap 2 episodes worth, you'll know we're lying.
We should do, starting next week, we should do predictions of where we think the next episodes will go. This episode was just a setup. It doesn't count.
We'll have threads. We'll have things to work on.
That's right. All right, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you later. Peace.
Later.